It's not the end result. It's the exploration and the joy of trying and failing, which is something that we're not rewarded for in most contemporary life.
Welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. On the show, it's my job to tease out the creative solutions my guests are coming up with to change the world through creativity, social action, and mindset. I also give you tips and techniques so you can do the same. This episode is brought to you by my class, Meditation for Busy People, where you'll learn how to relieve stress and discover clarity and joy in just 5 minutes a day. It's also brought to you by the Brain FM app and this podcast's host, Podbean. Also, follow the podcast on Instagram or TikTok and check out our shop for merch, music, and musings. The links are all in the show notes. Hey there, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to have this week's guest on the show. Let me tell you about Josep W. Rodriguez. Joseph is an actor, a writer, and he's the producing artistic director of Playhouse Creatures, where he's produced over 30 plays. Wow. For the Playhouse Creatures, he's produced things like Still Life and Execution of Justice and many other shows. He's also done Macbeth. He's done A Streetcar Named Desire in regional theater, American Buffalo. Yay, we love David Mamet. Breaking the Code, which is one of my favorite shows. And Joseph is a proud member of AEA and SAG-AFTRA. Joseph, thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to be talking to you. Welcome.
You're too kind. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, this is such a pleasure. So you and I met through a mutual friend, and I came to see you do a sort of staged reading of David Hare's Skylight. And one of the things that I loved about seeing that show, seeing that production, was that you took a show, a play that is not done all that often, certainly not in the USA, and you made it one of the sort of featured shows in your salon. And I would love to ask you if you would, and I'm going to just jump in because I want to talk to you about who you are and where you come from, but I do want to ask your thoughts on when you're making those kinds of choices as the artistic director. What are the criteria that go through you when you're making the choices about what shows to put on?
That's a great question. So much of it is really about our ethos as a company and the shows that are not only topical but evocative for an audience. And thank you for mentioning our Salon series, which is a free programming series that we've created, where monthly we provide readings of great plays, where our audience, which is comprised of our supporters and donors, may come free of charge and listen to it's more than a reading. It's an elevated reading because we have some staging involved, and of course, there's the great lure of free wine and cheese.
And grapes for us vegans. Who can
turn that down, of course. But certainly, one of the primary things that we think about is, what is this play about? How does this affect our audience, our society in this moment? And those are choices we make about the plays. Sometimes we're not as sometimes it's just we want to put on a great play, and that has its own importance as well. But the first 3 plays we put on have been really, I think, special and have addressed those social issues that are really part of our whole mission as a company.
Okay, so I love that you said that last part, because it's in thinking about this notion of theater as activism, right? I went to college at the University of Michigan and was in the theater department there, and we did a lot at the time. This was right before the musical theater department at Michigan became the musical theater department at Michigan. I graduated right before then, but I remember sort of feeling that sort of quickening of theater is activism, and theater is something that can open people's minds and give them things to think about. So when you, I mean, and David Hare just passed away right when you did Skylight, which
Not David Hare, but Michael Gambon.
Michael Gambon, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry. Who starred in the original production
Right.
in England. So in thinking about that, in thinking about like theater as activism, what I come to is this can be earth changing, earth shattering, earth everything if we use the platform of entertainment to give people something that's really thought provoking that might spur them on to action. So when you're
Absolutely.
so talk to me about that if you would. What is the message? You said that that's part of your mission, but what is the message that you want to bring to the people?
That people can be engaged, entertained, and energized to and I hear this from my board. I hear it from supporters, donors. Why don't you do something that's more commercial? Why don't you? And we could easily do that, but my retort is that's not who we are.
Mm.
And that's not denigrating commercial theater at all. You know, I go to Broadway. I love that escapism. I love that entertainment aspect of it. But I think we can do something different, and that's not what our theater is about. It's about not only engaging, but inspiring, and hopefully inspiring to activism. That when you leave a show of ours, you're not only thinking, but I want to do something. I want to make a donation. I want to join a soup kitchen. I want to do something. The experience has, in some ways, not only inspired but changed me, and I know that's a huge hope, but that's what we aspire to.
And you know, I don't know that it's a huge hope, honestly, because if we're open to it, it can change our lives, right?
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I'm taken back to the first play I ever directed, which was Pam Jem's radical feminist play, Duzefisch, Stas and Vi. And this was in college a long, long time ago. And looking at these four very different women and how their lives were changed by one another and also by the circumstances they found themselves in, four very, very different life circumstances. These were all things as students in college, we weren't quite there yet. We weren't quite ready to experience those things. And yet the five of us who did the show, who put on the show, it changed us all. So within that, I know that you're hoping to have these openings, to have people be activists, to have people go, I want to make a change. There's a psychology at work there that makes us think it's possible. So I guess what I want to know from you is, what is the psychology inside yourself that makes you think it's possible, that we can not only want to make change, but can make change?
I think, again, you know, there's the old adage, people rise to what they're offered in terms of, and if you only offer them simplicity, that's all they will be required to rise to. If you give them something with complexity or challenge or engage them in a way that they're not used to, I think we underestimate or undervalue what our audiences can be, or who our supporters can be, and we need to elevate our game so they are elevated by extension. That's just a primary belief of of mine and what I think our company is about.
I love that you said that it's a primary belief of yours, right? So much of what we do as performers, whether it is being a singer or running a theater company, is again the belief, the state of mind or the point of view that you can, that it's something that you can do, that no one is holding you back. It's one of the reasons I moved to New York City, actually, was because this is a place where anything is possible, and where if you have an idea, wow, there's probably going to be other people who go, yes, let's do that. So
If you can make it here.
exactly. I won't start singing. But for you, this has been a journey, right? You kind of went to this place also of, where am I? And the last time we chatted, you told me a little bit about your story, and that notion of where am I and where I am is not where I want to be. So I'm going to change things.
Okay.
So I would love it if you would tell me for yourself, because this is the Creative Solutions podcast, and you came up with a creative solution for yourself, really transforming your life. I would love it if you would trace that a little bit and go, because I've already talked about my college situation, right? But can you talk a little bit about what went through your mind, where you were to where you are, and how you made the decisions to go, I am going to make radical changes in who I am and what I do so that I can get closer to what I love.
To your point, I was an attorney. I had a legal career, and that was something that was, I don't want to say foisted upon me, but it was not something, an alternative was not something that was given to me as a potential path. And no criticism, enough therapy for that.
I love it.
But it, I had this moment of this epiphany where I said, I'm at a point in my life where I can make a radical change. And what will that mean in terms of the trajectory of my life? And too infrequently we have big thoughts about not only our own lives, but about what the world means. Why do we create art? Because we get so bogged down in the mundane. We have to get to the next level of success, and I think careers and futures are caught up in that, and as if somehow we actually have control over any of it. But what we do have control over is, I think, the positive and the good we're able to do, and so much of that is tied into what we choose to do with our lives / our careers. And I think that was the turning point for me professionally. And I took a sabbatical. My parents lost their minds. And I took a year of acting study, and I can't say ever that it was a bad choice. It was a transformative, positive choice, and I think I've done much more good. And that's also something. Listen, I have so many friends who are successful who have total focus on their personal careers, but luckily enough, for a variety of reasons, I've been able to be a part of this company that actually does more than elevate my own career. It moves the work forward. It has, as you know, a very activist component, and not only on stage but off stage. The work we do off stage, I think, is, if not more, if not as, certainly more important than we do on stage. Although we have a very robust onstage history. But I just feel that the two are so inextricably bound up. You can't be just focused on your own work.
Mm.
At least I can't.
Yeah, I agree with you. And part of it for me, and you right before we started recording, I had to make a quick phone call to an agent about the caroling group I lead, and kind of go, let me get this gig bound, blah blah blah. Let's get the paperwork done. And one of the things that I said to you right before we hit the record button was, yeah, we're entertaining, we are engaging with people, and people feel very, generally speaking, happy to be a part of what we're doing, right? We actively invite the audience in. And that's one of the things I noticed when we saw Skylight, was that I felt, yes, it was a staged reading, but I felt invited in. I felt like I was a little bit of a fly on the wall for this very intimate play. And I feel like the work that you're doing at Playhouse is doing that same kind of thing on an ongoing basis, that I feel very a part of it. Even though I've only seen one show, I feel very a part of it. Is that something that is something that's endemic, that's inherent to what you're trying to do with the production company, with the theater company?
Absolutely. I want people to be, for lack of a better term, I want them to feel like they're in the room with us.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to feel that they are part of our process. I want them to feel that the experience is something that they can share. And again, I don't want to criticize most commercial theater, but often it's very presentational. And there's nothing wrong with presentational theater, but often I'm going to watch a TV show on stage. And I want our experience, our theatrical experience, to be something where people can almost reach out and frankly, in your case, you could reach out and touch us.
Mm-hmm.
So I want it to be a very visceral, exciting experience for our audiences, and so they feel like they're a part of what we're doing.
Right.
And they are, quite frankly.
Sure. And the thing for me is that it's a presence thing, right? I felt like I was in the moment as it was happening, which to me that's what great acting is all about, is it's happening for the first time. Can I ask you, what do you do to foment that? What do you do to encourage that? If there's something conscious that you and the rest of the players and the directors and the techs and everything, if you are focused on that, what are some of the techniques that you might use to engage your audience, to bring them in even closer?
Some of it is venue-based, choosing locations that actually allow us to have the proximity that you referred to. Some of it is staging. We've been working a lot the last year in London. Very exciting about our collaborations there. But we're doing a lot of that same kind of work there. And also trying to elevate the stage reading to something that's more than people sitting at a music stand reading off a script, where I think from your experience, you saw we had some blocking and we had some challenges with the ska band next door playing.
Right.
But that's actually, all of those things I think are very exciting, because they're real and you're in the moment and you're dealing with it as a performer and as an audience, and you're sharing that experience, and that's very visceral and real.
Absolutely. And that was the thing. Like, you can imagine the Skylight takes place in an apartment. And you can imagine that there is at 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody's practicing. So
next door.
Exactly.
In that neighborhood that they lived in.
Right.
That was
And
what she lived in.
yeah, so for sure, that's again, it's incorporating it into the experience, into the entire theater experience. I remember when I was in college, I was taking an acting class, and we were building a character out of nothing. Essentially, it was no character that had ever been built before, and my character ended up being a woman accused of witchcraft in the 14th century or something like that, and what was interesting about it is we were just supposed to walk around the theater space and just walk around in whatever way we wanted. Somebody knocked something, and a block of wood hit me in the head, and it obviously hurt. And my professor just went, use it. And I went, okay. And so to make that even go further, then he said, and now you're going to get a phone call. And I'm like, okay, how does a woman in the 14th century get a phone call? So I had to incorporate all of that. And it was God speaking to her after she'd been hit on the head. But because that's what you do. So that kind of in the moment development happened because I had to go with what was in front of me, or what had literally hit me on the head. So I would love it if you would chat with me a little bit about your process. In addition to the company's process, what is your process of developing a character, of looking to bring to life something that has only been on the page for you before?
That's a great question. I'm a Stanislavski method trained actor, member of the Actors Studio. So, and early on when I was first acting, there was sort of adherence, almost religious adherence to a technique. But what I've learned as I've done more and worked more is that you adapt to what your role requires. And there's no one sacred technique. And the more as an artist you can avail yourself of different ways to work, whether it's Strasberg or Adler or Bobby Lewis or whatever, you need to know all the ways to work, because sometimes you walk in and you pick up a script and I get it. I don't need to do any work. And sometimes I don't get it. I need to do all of my technique work. I need to go back and what's the temperature in the room? I need to find all of my emotional triggers, all those things. And I think as an ever-evolving artist, you need to be open to that and figure out what works for you with regard to a specific role. Because they're all different.
And that's magical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's natural, even to the point of sometimes I pick up a script and I can one read and I know the lines. Other scripts, it takes me weeks to get off book.
Right. It's a
what
slog.
Is that? Why is that? Is there something in the rhythm of the writing? Is it something in the connection to me on a personal level? But it's a process, and actually the most exciting part of acting is the process. It's not the end result. It's the exploration and the joy of trying and failing, and which is something that we're not rewarded for in most contemporary life. We're only rewarded for success.
The finished product.
The finished product. And that's not what I mean. That's the most amazing, beautiful thing about theater is that it's never a finished product.
Right.
Because every night it's a new product.
It's definitely a new. I mean, this is one of the things that I realized about myself was I wasn't made for 8 shows a week. I personally was not made for 8 shows a week.
It is draining.
It is.
I tell you.
I believe you. And yet every time I've done theater that has been sort of a touring situation or a longer term commitment, it is different every time. The energy of the audience is different. The energy between you and the other people on stage is different. Cues get missed. I was doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was Titania, and her big scene with Nick Bottom, the Weaver. I'd gotten to the "Thou art as wise as thou art beautiful" line, and I forgot my name. I forgot where I was. I forgot what show I was doing. I forgot everything, and the only thing I could do, Joseph, was go, well. Because nothing, and everybody knows that's where she's supposed to be, all simpering in love. And the entire audience cracked up. And luckily, my Nick Bottom was like, I'm just going to keep going, because I had just screwed up. But it was so in the moment that everybody giggled,
And that's part of the communal experience that one only achieves with live theater. If it were a movie, there would be no mistakes. And kind of the exciting, dangerous aspect of live theater is there's always the potential for mistake. Sure. And things go wrong. And part of the joy and excitement of it is, how do we navigate that?
Right.
Because the mistakes, actually, as a teacher once said to me, that's the acting.
That's the secret sauce right there.
Yes, that's how you deal with. Of course, we all know our lines. We know our blocking. But when things go wrong, what do you do?
Right. So what do you
listen and react?
What do you do when things go wrong?
I've been fairly lucky. I actually I had a moment in a show in 2017. We were in previews, and Mrs. Packard, Emily Mann's play, we were in Boston, and I have this big emotional rant, and it just went out of my head. I had no idea. And took a moment, which seemed like an eternity, when there's nothing going on. And I just called for line. Just called for line. And the stage manager gave me the line, and we went on. And it reminded me of this experience when I saw Doubt several years ago with Cherry Jones. And she came out, and she was doing the show, and she went up, and she stopped, called for line, tried to start again, exited the stage, came back and said, "I'm so sorry. I got to get myself back together." And I so appreciated that from not only as an audience member, but it's not really happening.
Right.
This is a play.
Right.
But there was such a connection to the audience at that moment that wasn't there from the facade of the play going on. This was a real person having a moment. And I felt so privileged to be a part of that as an audience member. God, here's someone, a great artist, who's struggling, and it's not afraid to say, "I got to get myself together."
Right. That vulnerability. Wow.
Yes. That was the ultimate vulnerability.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so special. It's so special to know yourself well enough to go, I'm not going to blither on. I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to center myself. And
the confidence in that.
Yeah. Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. And she wasn't thrown. She just said, "I got to step off for a minute and pull things together."
Right.
And I thought, oh my God. No, because usually you're blah, 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 or trying to pull, improvise or make up lines, or she just said, "I got to step off."
Yeah.
And it was amazing. She came back, took, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes, probably got her lines, came back, and was fine.
I love it.
I was so impressed by that. And I would hope that when the next blackout happens, I'll be able to be as generous with my audience as well.
Absolutely. And like, who hasn't been there? Who hasn't started to open up their mouth and go, what's my name? Where am I? It happens. Our brains are constantly going, just thinking about how much stuff is coming at you at any one time. We're hyperstimulated all the time. How can we always be right on the money. I think it's nuts to assume that we can be. So giving ourselves some grace. And she did that for herself, and she did that for the audience right then.
It was
She gave,
remarkable.
I,
It was a remarkable moment. And
yeah,
as I said, I felt privileged to be in the space with her. And again, that goes back to my elemental belief about live theater, is that it is taking us back to our origins, where
mm,
people sat around campfire and told stories, shared
yes,
stories. And
yes,
there's nothing like that, regardless whether it's going to see Aladdin, or it's still a shared
mm-hmm,
experience
mm-hmm,
with an audience and live people on a stage telling a story. And that's something that I hope, I don't think it will, but I hope it continues to go on. And the kind of stories that we want to tell at Playhouse Creatures may not be the most commercial or well, I think they are uplifting. Let me correct myself before I say that. They are, I hope, inspiring and engaging people to be uh, agents of change.
mm,
That we don't want someone to come, and there's nothing, again, I said it before, wrong with going to the theater and disconnecting and God knows we deal with it. We're dealing with enough right now. We need escapism,
mm.
but that's not our theater. Our theater, I hope, or the kind of theater that we create, is something that moves you to leave the theater and say, "I needed to do something." Um, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to be an experience where that I have sometimes when I go to the theater. Half an hour later, I'm sitting in a bar or at dinner, and I'm saying, "What did I just see? What was the play? What was that?" I want it to be something that resonates and lives with you, and hopefully moves you to change and activism.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful and lovely, and I hope so too. And it's interesting, what you said about sitting around a campfire. I talk about that all the time, that the myths were explanations for why these things happen in the world. And the original, the Greek tragedies, they were
Yes.
looking at so much of why are these things happening? Why do people die? Why do we have
How do we
seasons?
explain what's happening
Exactly.
in our world right
Exactly.
now?
Yeah. And when we have someone brave enough to go, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at giving this explanation, and then we share it. Wow, that is life altering. So
And it's yes, and it's also something, it's an opportunity for us to share a different perspective or a
mm,
different experience, because so too often of late we're trapped in our, whether it's ethnic or political silos or whatever those silos may be, and we don't have a window into other people's experiences,
mm,
and we may not accept them if you tune on to MSNBC or Fox. But if you go to the theater or you through art, I think we can connect and we can share different experiences, and we can meet new
mm,
people, and we can learn about new experiences that we otherwise wouldn't be open to, because it's under the guise of entertainment. Uh, and it can be entertaining, but it can also be educating, and I think life affirming, life changing. And again, I'm on my soapbox, but that's the kind of theater that I hope that we've produced and will be continuing to produce.
I love that you said that. And one of the things that I am getting from what you're saying is that it's about forging connections, right? Whether it's internally in your own mind, or whether or not it's the audience to the actors on stage, or the actors or the tech crew with one another, that there is, like you said, a shared experience, but a sense of almost recognition and familiarity, because the shows that I'm seeing that you're doing so much strike at the heart of the human experience. And I you know, me, I'm a fangirl of, I have a tough time not being a fan of all theater or most theater. So I love seeing that this is the perspective that you all are taking, that it is this shared human experience that is also thought provoking at its base. So yay. I'm glad you're doing the work that you do.
Oh, Izolda, you're too kind. I mean, I'm getting all verklempt here.
As long as you don't get kerfuffled, I think we're
I
good.
don't. I'll step off there.
So no kerfuffled. But yeah, Joseph, I know that you have to go, but I would love it if you'd come back because I have like a list of another 45 questions that we didn't get to.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you
This is
so much.
such
And
a
we're so excited because, as I said, we have some big plans. We'll be doing taking the Salon series to London
yay.
in January, where we'll be reading 2 classic American plays from the downtown movement, along with a Burn This and True West. But along with that, our associate artistic director and I will be teaching a free workshop for the Well-Read series, which is in London, which is a whole advocacy group that helps young underprivileged youths not only improve their verbal skills, but also introduces them to theater. So we'll be doing that. And Erica Stevens Abbott, our associate artistic director, will be expanding on these 2 playwrights, Lanford Wilson and Sam Shepard, but also including the other playwrights, women playwrights from that era, from the downtown era, Irene Fornes and Judith Molina, people like that. So it's the Yanks are coming to London.
That's fantastic. And if somebody, I mean, I'm excited. True West, Lanford Wilson and Sam Shepard are 2 of my favorites anyway. I'm very excited for what you're doing, even though I won't be able to go to London and see these. I would love it if somebody wants to know more about Playhouse Creatures and also where to find you. How do they connect with you? Could you give just, I know people learn differently. Some want to see it, some want to hear it. Can you give sort of Instagram or your website or something so people can find you?
Absolutely. Our website is the ubiquitous www.playhousecreatures.org. And on Instagram, we're at Playhouse Creatures.
Perfect.
And we'll also be doing, we're in the planning stages of, over the past 2 years, we've been presenting a retrospective of the great Emily Mann's work. In March, we did a reading of her play Greensboro Requiem, a community reading in London. And then what we're planning now is a reading of her play Execution of Justice, about the murder of Harvey Milk, which will be a benefit for the Gay Center here in New York and the newly opened LGBTQ Center in London. So we'll have simultaneous readings going on in this kind of hopefully epic transatlantic event, and you can tune in. We'll see if technology will support us.
Yeah, that technology is great until it isn't. Joseph, before I let you go, I know you've got to run. I have one question that I ask everybody who comes on the show. I find that it's a silly question, but it can give some really profound answers. And the question is this: if you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Listen to each other.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for saying that. And in part because on a personal level, I don't know if you know, the play that I said that I wrote that I was going to send you, the script, is called Listen. So,
and this was not staged. This was all.
Not, this, nobody, I mean, unless you've listened to the end of one of these episodes, you don't know that this question is coming. I never tell anybody. So I'm super grateful that you said that. Joseph, once again, thank you for being on the show.
Izolda,
I appreciate
thank you so much for the time, and I would love to come back.
Anytime. Well, we're going to have to do like maybe a series of you talking about some of the stuff Playhouse Creatures, but also your own career and your own process. This is fascinating to me. If you've been listening to this, you need to find Joseph. You need to find Playhouse Creatures. You need to go to the Salon series. It's free. How can you not? It's amazing theater. It happens right in front of you. It is really visceral, and you feel very connected to the players, to the show, to the script. You get to talk to the actors and the director right afterwards because they're almost always right there, and they're very inviting. I loved the one experience I had. I can't wait to have more. As I said, I wish I could go to London and be there. Unfortunately, I can't. But you know that I'll be here next week with another episode. I think we're doing the You Should. That's the episode. Until next time, this is Izolda Trachtenberg for the Creative Solutions Podcast, reminding you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the show if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2024. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.